Isn't that sweet? Hello guys, and welcome to a new video of Top 10 video. Today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite Nintendo games of all time. NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. This is a very special list for me because this is the system that I started on as a kid, and I didn't really grow up on it. I grew up more on the Super Nintendo and the N64, but I still adore this system. This is the main system that I collect for, so I'm really excited to jump into this. And I do actually have one rule for this list. I don't usually put rules, but this one, it would be broken if I didn't. Uh, Only one game per series. So if it wasn't like that, it would probably be like my top 6 Mega Man games and 4 other games. So yeah, there you have it. Let's start with number 10. Tetris. Tetris is a very addicting game coming from the Soviet Union, and it actually has a pretty dirty history, which I will actually go over another time. But it comes from the Soviet Union, and it's a very addicting puzzle game that has spawned numerous, and I mean numerous, games from different systems, to phones, to the computer. You can go Google it right now, say play Tetris, and you can play Tetris on the computer right now if you want. But the NES, did their version, and they did it really good. It's really addicting, and I still pick it up and play it to this day sometimes, even though I can just play it on the computer. The only thing it does lack is the two-player mode, which is kind of a bummer, but there you have it. Also, they did have a different mode where you could, they had blocks spread out over the area, and you could match the. It's kind of hard to explain. You'd have to see it, but it was more of a challenge because there was already blocks everywhere that were really messed up, and you had to kind of try to fix them, if that makes any sense. Number 9 is Star Tropics. Star Tropics mixes kind of action adventure with maybe some kind of. It's not really RPG. It's more action adventure overhead. It's really, really similar to Zelda, actually, in some ways. The original Zelda. The only difference is this one has towns, and it has a ship that you can maneuver. And the story is pretty interesting because your uncle is actually abducted by some kind of alien race, and you have to try to rescue him. And you go through an overworld, transition, and then you go into like a top-down view where you use different weapons and to defeat the enemies. Quick story, by the way: the game over screen and the death when you die used to frighten me as a kid. Weird. Number 8 is one that I actually started playing recently. I never played Kirby's Adventure on the NES, but it's really fun. It's one of the newer NES games, and it's really, really fun. I mean, really fun. This is, I believe it's the first Kirby game. Don't quote me on that. It might have been the Game Boy one. I think it was this one, though. And what's interesting about Kirby is you can get abilities, kind of like Mega Man in a way. You can suck and eat your enemies and gain their ability, and you can use it until you take too much damage and you lose it. But and he can also kind of fly. And I wasn't actually introduced to Kirby until I played Super Smash Bros. So once I went back and I played the Kirby games. I played a couple on the Game Boy system. I know I played on the Game Boy Advanced, which was really fun. One of my favorite Kirby games is the one on the 64, the Crystal Shards, and then I actually played this one real recently. But it was that good to make it on the list. It's really addicting, really fun, really easy though. Number 7 is Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest in Japan, but it had to be switched to Dragon Warrior for copyright issues here in the U.S. Dragon Warrior is such a fun game. It's not the first RPG I ever played, but I did go back and play it, later on, and because I know that Dragon Quest is really popular in Japan. It's not as popular in America. It is popular, but it's not as popular as in Japan. Japan, it's like a, phenomenon. But it's one of the very first RPGs on a home console. Might have been the first. And you start with your one character. You go out, fight monsters, you level up. It's a grind fest. Believe me, it is a grind fest. You have to sit and kill monsters endlessly until you level up, until you're powerful enough to move on to the next area. But I kind of like that some ways. I know it's weird coming from me because I don't like turn-based, but like Breath of Fire, this one is really really fast. You can do battles really fast in this game. So there you have it. Number 5 is the booklet's in the way. The original Legend of Zelda. Zelda is a really really good series, really fun series, one of my favorites, and this one was actually the very first Zelda game I ever played. And I remember picking it up and it being really hard for me to maneuver. I didn't really know what to do, where to go. But that's what makes this game so good. It throws you in the middle of nowhere, and you have to figure out everything for yourself. You know, back in those days, there wasn't any kind of internet that was reliable for you to check, you know, whatever. You know, basically you had to figure out all the secrets and everything that you had to do in this game by yourself or through word of mouth or through Nintendo Power. I think gave them some secrets. I don't read Nintendo Power, so I don't know, but I'm sure they did. But you know, figuring all the things, you know, it surprises me a lot of the times how people could actually figure all this stuff out. You know, it was that good where people just kept going back to the game and playing it until they figured everything out. It's really really cool. I'm not gonna lie, I used a guide to figure out all the secrets. Now, when I first played it, uh, you know, my family who had played it already figured a lot of stuff out, and they told me. I probably figured out a few things, not much though. You know, there's so many secrets in this game. It's also revolutionary for being the very first game you can actually save through the cartridge. You didn't need a password system. Also, it's the first game to have 3 different files, so you could, you know, have your own file instead of just playing one file, you know, to share with your family or your friends or whoever was playing with you. So there you have it. Also, one more thing, it had a second quest if you typed in Zelda as your name. Even though the character's name is Link, if you actually typed in Zelda as your name, you could get a second quest, and it was pretty much the same game, only everything was, you know, in different areas, all the secrets and everything. So pretty interesting little gem there. Number, wait a minute. Oh, this is number 5. I think I said Zelda was number 5. That was number 6. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, number 5 is Super Mario Brothers 3. Super Mario Brothers 3, I love the original Mario, and I do like 2 as well, but 3 is the, you know, the taker for this one. 3 had so much to offer. It had a huge world, 8 worlds really, and each of them were huge. The levels, you could actually see the levels on the map, which is cool. The levels were short, but the difficulty in this game, the difficulty spike from the first one, was so high. I mean, this one was hard, very hard. Once I actually did beat this game, I actually beat it on the Super Mario All Stars version on the Super Nintendo. But once I did beat it, I was so satisfied because all the work and, you know, I didn't break any controllers, but I wanted to at some point. It was hard. It's a hard game. Also, there were so many improvements, like the graphics, obviously, and the power-ups you could get. You could, you know, get the raccoon tail, which actually made you fly, which is kind of weird, but you know, it did. And there were several other ones, like there was a frog suit, and oh, another thing that it did is had these little mini games you could play in some of the levels to get extra lives or items, and you could actually stash your items away and use them when you needed to, which is really good idea, Nintendo, because this was hard. You needed that. Number 4 is Kid Icarus. So, here's the deal. I didn't play Kid Icarus as a kid. I was first introduced to, you know, Pit in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Once I was introduced to him, I didn't know what series he came for. I had never heard of this game at all. So, you know, through some digging, I figured out it was, you know, this game existed, and I went back and I played it, and the first thing I thought of is it's a lot like Metroid. I'm not a huge Metroid fan, um, but this game was not only kind of similar to Metroid in a way, but it was so much better than Metroid. Oh my goodness, it was better than Metroid, in my opinion. You could get so many power-ups, you could level up your stats, you can get hearts to, you know, level up, and you can improve your abilities. Just there's so much about this game that was improved, um, that was, you know, good, not improved, because this isn't a sequel. But anyway, sorry, it was just it was just a masterpiece. And the reason it's number 4 on my list, I usually don't put games that I just recently played so high on a list, but this is one game that I continuously go back to. I've already beaten it, but I like beating it again. It's just so fun. I don't know what it is about it, but it's so satisfying every time I beat it. It is really hard though. You have to just take your time. That's the key to beating this game. Is just take your time. Don't try to go through fast, and you'll get it eventually. Number 3 is one of my favorite RPGs of all time, the original Final Fantasy. Now, I didn't play this until I got a copy for Christmas on the PS1. It was Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy 2. Never was a huge Final Fantasy fan. I played Final Fantasy 7. That was my first Final Fantasy game. But when I played this one, I mean, I like more RPGs that are not full of cutscenes and story. I know that's kind of weird, but I'm more, like I said, I like platformers because it's all about the gameplay. It's not about the story. You don't have to watch a bunch of cutscenes. So RPGs kind of turn me off sometimes. The only reason I really enjoy RPGs is because of how much you grow. You get experience, you level up, you get armor, better weapons, better magic. That's always been really cool to me. This game was just that. You got 4 characters. You could choose any class you wanted, which gives it great replayability. You could, choose a different class every time you go. My favorite personal class is 1 warrior, 1 monk, 1 fighter, 1 black belt, 1 white mage, and 1 red mage. But there was just so many different kinds of classes and groups and parties you can come up with, which made this game stand out, and it's one of my favorite games. Not only RPGs, but games of all time. Number 2 is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. This was one of the first games that I ever played, not only on the NES, but ever. This game was just so fun. It was hard. I've still never beaten this because I can't get past Mike Tyson still, but cute. But it was so fun because it wasn't just a fighting game. You see boxing and you think, oh, it's just a boxing game. It's probably not going to be that fun. But it's different. Nintendo made it different because you had to figure out all the patterns each fighter had. Each fighter would come in and they would all have a different pattern, different weakness, a different way of fighting them, and you had to figure that out, and that was always really, really fun to figure out. It was really hard, though. Like I said, Mike Tyson's a beast. He's so hard to beat. And you're terribly weak against your opponents. Your character is Little Mac, and he's very little, very tiny, and he's very weak. So if you get hit hard, it's going to be hard to recover. So it's a really hard game, but if you have a lot of patience and you like strategy and trying to figure things out like that, this is the game for you. It's such a fun game. And then my favorite NES game of all time is a Mega Man game, of course, and it's Mega Man 6, my favorite Mega Man game of all time. So Mega Man 2 was the first game I ever played. Then I played them all. Went back to 1 once the Anniversary Collection came out. But Mega Man 6 is just still my favorite in the series, just because it's the biggest improvement. 2 had 8 Robot Masters, and you could get energy tanks. 3 had the slide, and you can get Rush. 4 had the Mega Charge Buster. 5 had Beat and better graphics, and then 6 had all of that, and the Rush Jet adapters. And this was the one the first Mega Man game where people were allowed to, outside of Capcom, the fans were allowed to choose Robot Masters, which was really interesting. But not really much to say about this game. It's just a classic Mega Man game, and I think it has the best improvements over all the others. I don't think 2's the best because there's just so much improvement on the series as a whole. Like you can slide and you can do the Mega Charge. 2's a great game. The soundtrack on this game is really good too. I will admit that I think 2 and 3 do have the best soundtrack, but 6 is just everything about it's just improved from all the originals, and it's just a classic. So that was my top 10 favorite NES games. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment. Let me know what your top 10 NES games are. I'd love to hear. Leave me a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more. So I'll see you later on for another video. Have a good night.